Hello YouTube world, my name is Nicholas Montez and you're watching my YouTube channel, The Teenage Movie Critic, and welcome back to my YouTube channel everybody. I'm so excited to have you all back together again, and in today's video, we're doing a ranking video of the Sony Marvelverse. I have been wanting to do this for quite some time because I've seen most of them, but obviously there was two that I haven't seen yet, which are Morbius and Madam Web, and with the release of Madam Web, I wanted to go ahead and finally rank all 4 films, which is going to be pretty easy because there's not a lot of great movies, but there's also not a lot of good movies. So let's go and get started talking about all of them. And surprisingly enough, easily coming in last place is Madam Web. For me, this was probably one of the most disappointing superhero films. I mean, obviously there's... even in my head, I was kind of thinking, there's no way that this movie could really be good. In the trailers, it kind of perceived that maybe it actually had a chance of not changing the superhero genre, but at least maybe being something that's watchable, and it's just not. To where they try to create something interesting with Madam Web, and going back to the birth of Peter Parker and trying to protect him. But there's nothing of that that's interesting, but they don't do anything interesting with that concept. Plus, with our Spider-Woman in here, they don't really do anything interesting with the characteristics of them. They don't do anything interesting with them. So you just have a bunch of really attractive women in Spider-Woman suits that really fit them, really well. And that's kind of the only good thing about the film is the woman. And most people can be like, it's MCU type shit, but... so who cares? This is kind of going back to what She-Hulk was like. At the same time, I will say, the only thing I really liked about this film was the relationship between our Spider-Woman and Madam Web herself. The whole CPR thing that they did, they were practicing and then they did it on Madam Web. That was a little cool arc that they had. Besides that, I did not care anything else about this movie. It comes in last place. Now, I obviously do not like this movie as well either, but this one actually handled a little bit of things better. Of course, I think the premise of it is a bit more interesting, as you have this guy with a brother, and they both have diseases. One is being healed, but the other one's not being treated as well. But even then, the whole story of like their background and stuff, you don't really get too much of what exactly happened to them. And even when it comes into like the action, it's not really all that great. And even like his brother type character was just boring. Plus, even the end credit scenes are bad. I mean, they literally they bring Vulture in, and it doesn't even make sense of how he's there. And I guess they somewhat made sense of it when we saw in Across the Spider-Verse, when we saw the medieval Vulture coming in. But even then, that still doesn't fix my issue with the film. Other than that, granted, this is my last 2 weeks ago. It was my first time watching it, so I may be in the wrong of this. I'm not in the wrong, I'm in the right, because everybody hates this movie. But should I not have watched this movie? Probably not, but I watched it anyway. Alright, so pretty much every other movie on this list, which are pretty much the Venom movies, I like. And Venom 2 was a pretty good experience. I remember I wanted to go see this in the theaters with my mom, and I thought it was another good, successful film from the first Venom movie. I thought what they did with this one is because you're not wasting too much time of trying to bring Venom and Eddie Brock together. You start the movie off with them being together, and once again, the banter between them is just so much fun. But at the same time, it's somewhat... They actually crafted an interesting idea for this film of making it kind of like a rom-com in a sort of sense between these two characters, as you have these best friends that can't stand each other, so they decide to leave each other, but then when things get down, they have to come back together. That's an interesting concept for a sequel to a Venom movie, as the first film was just really good. Woody Harrelson as Cletus Cassidy Carnage, I thought was actually pretty good of a villain, but that's kind of where the film just downsizes for me, where it's a lot more fun, has a bit better action in the way you're having two symbiote characters fight. I kind of wish we got more development with our villains. Like, Cletus Cassidy had lots of potential to be a really good villain, but we didn't get much of him. We didn't really get much of him as Carnage, is what I'm trying to say. And the whole Scream character, I wish we could have gotten more of. And so there's a lot of stuff that I wish we could have gotten more of to make it probably a successful, better Venom movie. And then the fact that, like, she wants to break her out and stuff and do a wedding seems a little bit cartoonish to me. But other than that, it's a good sequel to the first Venom movie, while having a few flaws in the mix. And easily in first place is the first Venom movie. I thoroughly enjoyed the first Venom. And for me, it kind of gives me what I want in a comic book movie, which I really wish that the future Sony Marvel movies do this, where they actually came up with an interesting idea to do Venom, Eddie Brock's Venom, but how to make him a little bit of an anti-hero, superhero type stuff. You add a bit of comedy, have them have a bromance, but then also have some really cool action throughout it. And while the villains do suck, they're not really coming for the interesting villain and how these symbiotes will affect the world. Technically, if you want a story like that, you can read the comics, go to the Spider-Man 2 video game, or watch Marvel's Spider-Man on Disney+. But this movie is all about the interactions between Eddie Brock and Venom, and that's the big standout that works about this movie, is their bromance. It works very well, and just the way that it's just so funny, but at the same time it's also action-packed, that there's a lot of exciting action in here. And I guess you could say this is also a contender for a film to watch and have food with you, because, you know, as he's getting hungry, he starts eating like live lobster. He starts like eating all of this different stuff. It's like, it's making you hungry, but you know it's gross. It's like grossly hungry. It's weird, but it sounds delicious. I don't know. I have this weird craving for food whenever I'm seeing someone else eat. This is a really good movie. It's not great, but it is very entertaining and enjoyable, and that's why it's at number 1 as the best Sony Marvel movie. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.